Coming up on our newscast, a deadly crowd crush took more than 150 lives during Halloween festivities in Itaewon Saturday night. People are visiting memorial altars set up across the nation to pay tribute to the victims of the tragedy. The government has designated Yongsan-gu district, where Itaewon is located, as a special disaster zone. Assistance of up to $10,000 will be provided to each of the victims' families to cover various expenses, including funerals. Around 17% of the Itaewon tragedy victims are foreign nationals. The government will work to provide assistance and issue visas to family members arriving in South Korea. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. In the first Halloween celebration since lifting various COVID-19 restrictions, lives were lost in a horrific crowd crush. The number of people impacted by the incident in Itaewon surpassed 300. The death toll stands at 154. Authorities have completed identifying the bodies, and our Arirang is standing by in Itaewon right now for us. Rayon, do fill us in.
Daniel, instead of partygoers and travelers, right now most people here in Itaewon have come to pay their respect. It was relatively quiet earlier in the day, but there were noticeably more people coming to mourn after 7 p.m. Makeshift memorials are set up right outside of Itaewon Station, very close to where the incident happened, with onlookers leaving flowers and notes.
It's so very sad to see another incident like this with so many casualties after the Seoul ferry disaster. I think this sadness will last for a very long time.
I remember when we were here last night, on Saturday night, I just don't remember getting any warnings or the news updates. They were still they weren't really informative. There were no jiachols open or cabs, no cabs at all. It just felt incredibly mishandled.
Around 40 officials from Seoul Metropolitan Police and National Forensic Service arrived at 2 p.m. this afternoon and carried out a forensic examination for around 2 hours to try and determine the main cause.
And President Yoon will declare a week of mourning across the nation, and business owners who must be shocked by what happened up close, how are they responding so far?
Right, Daniel, from yesterday, most businesses here in Itaewon have closed. They will stay that way until Saturday after the end of the national mourning period. According to Itaewon Special Tourist Zone Organization, around 100 businesses in Itaewon are participating in the move. Some shop owners are even volunteering to provide snacks and coffee for the firefighters and police officials who are here on site. And one shop owner who I met says she ordered boxes of flowers to give out to people.
There are no flower shops around here. That's why we ordered 100 of them to give out to people who are here to mourn. I hope other merchants help out as well.
Just like other commercial districts, Itaewon too suffered greatly during COVID-19, particularly as a result of being one of the sites of an early outbreak that brought the area to its knees. While business owners may have been looking forward to this year's Halloween, none will have foreseen what happened on Saturday. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Rehan, thank you for being out there for us. We appreciate it. Joint memorial altars are installed in many parts of the country. A large number of people have and are coming to pay their respects. Our Han Sung-woo joins us live from one of the memorials. Sung-woo, what can you tell us?
Daniel, I'm out here at the joint memorial altar that was set up by the city of Seoul at Seoul Plaza, the heart of the city, just 15 minutes away from Itaewon by car. And as you can see, this place is just drenched with sadness and sorrow. People from all over the city have come here to pay their respects to the victims of Saturday's tragedy that claimed 154 precious lives. Here's what some of them, the mourners, had to say.
The whole nation is grieving. It hurts to think they were just kids who hadn't even entered the prime of their lives.
Like many of the victims, I'm also in my 20s, and it's shocking something so awful happened near where I live. Social distancing measures have almost all been eased and the victims just wanted to enjoy Halloween. It's such a tragedy.
Imagining people just going to party to have fun with friends and just like young people mostly, and seeing their lives ending this way, it was like really heartbroken, and it really affected me too, even though I wasn't there.
In the morning, President Yoon and First Lady Kim Gun-hee stopped by at 9:30 a.m. and laid white chrysanthemums after paying a silent tribute. They were joined by several of Yoon's top aides, including Chief of Staff Kim Dae-gi and National Security Advisor Kim Sung-an at the altar, which will be in place during the national mourning period through Saturday and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. Citizens are welcome, though, to freely pay their respects outside these hours as well. Following in the president's footsteps to pay tribute this morning were Prime Minister Han Deok-soo, Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hun, former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and National Police Chief Yoon Hee-geun. And in the afternoon, several other top officials, including Foreign Minister Park Jin and Unification Minister Kwon Young-se.
And Sung-woo, for those who can't make it to Seoul Plaza, we understand there are more memorials set up elsewhere.
That's right, Daniel. There's actually one located very near Itaewon. That one's located at Noksapyeong Station Plaza. That's just one metro station away from the site. It also opened to the public this morning, and that one will stay open around the clock 24 hours until the national mourning period ends. But Yongsan-gu District isn't the only area mourning the victims. All 24 other districts in the capital have installed joint altars of their own in and around their district offices, with Mapo-gu, Seodaemun-gu, and Gangnam-gu district even operating 2 each. Information on where they're located can be found on their respective websites. Many districts, in an act of solidarity and tribute, have canceled local festivals and events. Joint memorial altars have reportedly been set up in all of the 17 so-called first-tier administrative divisions across the country as well. That's all I have for tonight. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Sung-woo, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. President Yoon Suk-yeol designated Yongsan-gu District, where Itaewon is located, as a special disaster zone. This means the country will provide assistance of up to $10,000 per person to the victims' families to cover various expenses, including funeral costs and psychological support. Lee Kyung-eun explains further.
Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hun says the city will stand by all the bereaved families of those who died in the Itaewon crowd crush disaster.
Seoul City will be doing all it can. First and foremost, the priority is to help hold the funerals for all citizens to mourn together.
And with President Yoon Suk-yeol designating the Yongsan-gu District as a special disaster area, the Seoul City government will be in charge of helping with the funeral expenses. The amount is determined between the Central Disasters Headquarters in the city has gone up compared to previous disasters due to inflation.
We will provide up to 15 million Korean won, or roughly $10,000 for funeral costs, and also the cost to transport the bodies of the deceased. We've also designated each bereaved family an official to help with the arrangements.
For the foreign nationals, similar help will be given to their families via embassies and consulates. As for those injured, the government will cover their medical costs using national health insurance funds. Foreign nationals are also eligible, as well as those injured trying to rescue others. Families of the injured will also be eligible for financial support for psychological treatment. There will also be a separate relief payment for the bereaved families and the injured. Other forms of financial assistance are also being prepared, like cutting, exempting, or delaying tax payments or phone bills. President Yoon's swift declaration of the area as a special disaster area, which came less than a day since the accident occurred, is set to provide this relief in a speedy manner. This is the 11th time in South Korean history that the government has provided emergency relief funds for societal disaster. The most recent include the COVID-19 pandemic and Seoul ferry sinking in 2014. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
26 of the Halloween stampede victims were identified to be foreigners from 14 different countries. The Korean government is reaching out to their families to help them if and when they arrive in the nation, as well as to make funeral arrangements. Kim Da-mi has the details.
For Nathan from Australia, his trip to South Korea ended with the devastating loss of his friend, whose birthday was coming up in just a few days.
I had to tell her family this morning that she's passed away. I pulled off the blanket and I saw her face.
The woman from Australia was one of the 26 foreign citizens who died in Saturday night's incident. They were from 14 different countries. 5 of the dead were from Iran, 4 from China, 4 from Russia, and there were 2 from the US and also 2 from Japan. 1 death was reported among nationals of each of the following countries: France, Australia, Norway, Austria, Vietnam, Thailand, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Sri Lanka. Seoul's foreign ministry plans to provide assistance to the families of victims if and when they come to South Korea, including issuing visas upon their arrival at Incheon International Airport.
We are reviewing measures to ensure that foreign victims can receive assistance at the level Koreans do.
As with the Korean victims, a South Korean government official will be assigned to work with each of the foreign victims' families. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
More than 100,000 people reportedly flocked to Itaewon to celebrate Halloween on the day of the tragedy. A large number of survivors who suffered from the crowd pressure likely witnessed or experienced the deadly incident themselves. Medical experts say they could be traumatized for a long period of time. Yoon talked to some eyewitnesses to find out how they are coping.
For the first time in my life, after 27 years, I realized that I am going to die.
My hands were shaking, my feet were shaking. There are a lot of people crying. There are a lot of people around me saying, "Please help my friend."
Tens of thousands had come to Itaewon to enjoy the first no-mask Halloween in 3 years. But instead, they saw people gasping for air and some lying dead on the streets.
At first, I thought people were drunk. They were just lying still on the streets. But I realized there were ambulances and stretchers everywhere. That's when I got scared.
It's been a few days since the disaster, but images of the night still linger for those who were there.
Right now, I'm trying to not think about it. I'm doing all the different activities that I would like to do, just to get it off my mind.
And is that working? Are you not thinking about what's happening?
I mean, it comes one and it comes.
Mental health professionals say this is natural.
Eyewitnesses will inevitably suffer from PTSD. Because we're seeing so many videos of the disaster going viral on social media, those who weren't even there may be traumatized. And it's not trauma from a small event. It's a large-scale national tragedy that requires professional mental counseling and care.
The expert said there's 2 main symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. 1, being overly sensitive or exhausted. 2, doing everything possible to avoid thinking about what happened.
It may be difficult for people traumatized by the Itaewon crush to come even close to these narrow alleyways. What we need to do now is make sure they too receive proper care and support. Yoon, Arirang News.
Some medical experts say the Itaewon tragedy happened because thousands were crammed into a small area. They believe many may have died in shock after being pushed hard in every direction. Jung provides a deeper analysis.
The tragic crowd crush occurred as tens of thousands of people flooded into the Itaewon neighborhood in central Seoul to celebrate Halloween. As the crowd surged in a narrow alleyway, it became hard for the layers of people to breathe and impossible for them to move. People suffocated, and as they fell, it created a domino effect.
Witnesses say there were 5 to 6 layers of people. If we suppose one man weighs 60 kilograms, if there are 5 layers, this becomes 300 kilograms. If a woman who weighs 50 or 40 kilograms is buried underneath, almost all her organs and skeletal system will be crushed.
Another expert says, compared to a general cardiac arrest, the golden time, the critical time period where death can be prevented following an injury, could be shorter in this kind of traumatic suffocation, less than 4 minutes.
What's more deadly in this case is that the heart could have been pressed very hard, which makes the blood flow back up to the head and neck. So compared to a conventional cardiac arrest, people can die more quickly due to suffocation.
Also, many were killed even though they hadn't fallen down, as they were pushed intensively in every direction. A professor on disaster management says it could be fatal if more than 7 people are concentrated in a 1 square meter wide area.
The alleyway is only about 128 square meters, and it could be deadly if about 980 people are packed in that space. But during the incident, more than 1,000 people were swamped in that narrow space.
He added the area wasn't being controlled, as people coming up from the subway station and coming down were mixed in that alleyway.
If there was some sort of police line and a one-way system in place, then such a disaster could have been prevented.
One expert stressed that it is important to raise awareness and educate people properly.
In slanted areas such as stairs, when it's crowded, it's best to move towards the edge. And on flat land, if it seems dangerous, it's safest to escape the ground quickly.
엄지영, Arirang News.
Investigations continue to find the exact cause of the Itaewon tragedy. Many question whether the crowd crush could have been prevented. According to some experts, the biggest problem is there are no laws covering safety measures for massive events without an official host. Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Manuals and laws were in place, but with loopholes in them, they could not prevent the deadly Halloween crowd crush at Itaewon. There is a Management of Disasters and Safety Act that requires festival hosts to submit a plan for safety to the local government ahead of the actual event. Once the safety plan is submitted, the law calls for local governments to cooperate fully with the police and the fire department to review and implement it. However, the law does not apply to events that do not have a specific host that can be held accountable for accidents, which was the case in Itaewon. The fireworks festival hosted earlier this month by Hanwha Group drew a crowd of around 1 million to the financial district of Yeouido. In this instance, however, there was a specific host, Hanwha Group, which enabled the city of Seoul to set up a safety headquarters with the police and fire department. Experts say this shows there should be a law requiring local governments to manage events that do not have specific host as well.
There was no host this time. There was no event held by the district of Yongsan-gu. There was no mechanism for controlling or managing the festival. The police, too, their main job is to maintain public order, not to manage events. So there was no way to control anything.
Other countries, such as Japan and the United States, do take measures to prevent accidents during Halloween. In Shibuya, Tokyo, posters asking people to maintain public order had been up for a month, and hundreds of police were on site. New York City, too, blocked off traffic on hundreds of streets and deployed more police. It is important to have safety measures in place before events are held, but experts say another thing that should not be overlooked is safety education.
In the U.S., safety education is mandatory until high school, and it's part of the regular curriculum until high school in the UK too, focusing more on actual drills. Japan and Germany as well. But South Korea does not do proper safety education after elementary school, and even at that level, it's mostly theoretical or presented through videos.
To ensure the Itaewon tragedy is not repeated, the first step is to make sure there are proper laws for festivals when they're not hosted by anyone in particular, and to provide safety education to students for longer into their school years. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
President Yoon ordered officials to come up with safety rules for events like Halloween that draw huge crowds. In Monday's weekly meeting with the PM, this time also attended by the Interior Minister, he ordered a thorough investigation of the tragedy and also to formulate a fundamental approach to preventing accidents. This comes as some point out there are safety loopholes in events that have no host to establish such plan and get it approved by the local government or police. Local governments will likely be given the authority to ask for police management when necessary, even for events not organized by them. Mentioning the loss of many young lives, the South Korean leader said he feels indescribable sorrow and responsibility. South Korea and Poland agreed to work together to build nuclear power plants in the European country. State-run Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power signed a letter of intent with Polish private energy group ZPAC and Poland's state-owned public power company PGE. The three firms plan to cooperate in a project in Padnau, which involves building 4 1,400-megawatt nuclear reactors using South Korean technology. A preliminary development plan will be drawn up by the end of this year. If a final deal is signed, it will be South Korea's first nuclear power plant export in over a decade. The Trade Ministry also signed an MOU with the Polish Ministry of State Assets to support the project and share related information. South Korea's top military officer visited the country's Air Force Operations Command and the Air Defense Missile Command to check their combat readiness. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair Kim Seung-yum ordered them to maintain a strong readiness posture to counter various threats from North Korea. He also visited the Air Force's 19th Fighter Wing that's currently taking part in the large-scale combined training with the U.S. The Allies kicked off their 5-day air drill on Monday, involving 240 combat aircraft. Unlike in the past when they sought to keep a low profile, this year's training is an apparent warning message to North Korea. Over in Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has beaten incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro by a narrow margin in a runoff election, making a stunning political comeback. According to the country's electoral authority, the former leader, widely known as Lula, secured 50.9% of votes against right-wing rival Bolsonaro. The president-elect pledged to unite a divided Brazil and call for international cooperation to preserve the Amazon rainforest. This will be his third term as president after governing Brazil for 2 consecutive terms from 2003 to 2010. His inauguration is scheduled to take place on January 1st. Elsewhere around the world, a deadly accident happened in India. Local police officials say at least 141 people were killed when a suspension bridge collapsed in the western Indian state of Gujarat on Sunday. Hundreds are estimated to have been on the 230-meter-long bridge when the incident happened. Many were reportedly children, women, and the elderly. So far, at least 177 people have been rescued. Search operations continue as many others are still missing. Officials explain the bridge collapsed Sunday evening due to overcrowding with people celebrating holiday festivities. The structure reopened just a week ago after repairs. Authorities promised a full investigation to find out whether safety inspections were conducted thoroughly beforehand.
A spell of warm weather will continue to prevail tomorrow. For most inland regions, maximum temperatures will be 2 to 3 degrees higher than the seasonal average. Places like Gyeongju will see highs surpassing the 20-degree mark, but morning lows will stay in single figures. Wide temperature gaps are expected, so please be extra careful not to catch a cold. Western parts of the country will be under stagnant atmospheric conditions tomorrow. Finest concentrations will temporarily soar in the Seoul metropolitan area for the morning hours. For Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces, air quality will stand in the bad category for the entire day. For those across the nation, please make sure to have a mask that can filter out the dust particles, such as a KF94. Morning lows in Seoul will be starting off at 11 degrees tomorrow. And daily highs in Seoul and Chuncheon will be reaching 18. Busan will be making it to 23 degrees. A surge of frigid air will filter into the nation for the latter half of the week. By Friday, morning temperatures will plummet significantly. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.